Greetings, everybody. I did not record our Zoom session, so I am going to do a quicker recap. I'm sorry you won't get to see the original one because there were several participants. I also, though, want to tell you that this is a time-sensitive session. I saw several people wanted to join our Zoom session after it was already over. The time frame is always going to be what I send in my email. So hopefully you'll be able to catch us next time, and hopefully this video will be helpful. So the first thing that I want to chat about is the idea of using text to support your response. So you have a writing project. Let me quickly go over the writing project with you, which is, we have our key questions. What is an obstacle that attempts to prevent equity in education? And how can people prevail against it? The prompt is, each of the authors have had obstacles to overcome in their educational journeys in this multi-paragraph essay. Your job is to identify a hurdle that is giant in education as illustrated in the readings, and explain how this challenge could be potentially overcome based on the information that is suggested. And then finally, in your conclusion, answer the following question. What is the significance of this triumph for us as students? So your job is to answer these key questions, but the prompt is telling you that you need to utilize the text that we've been reading. You also are able to take a look at your Reflective Writing Club blog responses that could also help you with your response, your essay as well. And so you want to be thinking about which text resonated with you, what challenge, what obstacle do you notice in education? There have been several that were brought up in our Zoom meeting, one of which was the idea of actually physically getting to school, like being able to get on the bus to get to school, that was a barrier to success. So that's something that you could write about, that, we notice in Kozel when he talks about inequity based on socioeconomic status. That is actually something that is something you could write about in your essay using Kozel to discuss that. Another person talked about the fact that supplies, books, it's just very hard to get books, and that if you come from a lower socioeconomic status, you cannot get those books. We talked quite a bit about Malcolm X and Kozel and their texts and the obstacles they had to overcome and the motivation they had, well, specifically Malcolm X had, to still learn anyway. So I want to remind you that as you're writing, you're going to want to have this out in front of you so that if you ever feel like you don't know where you're going, that you can go ahead and take a look at these key questions, okay? So the next thing that I would like to talk to you about is your intense pre-writing. I have given you an extension to Sunday because I wanted to make sure you had a couple of days to work on that. And I want to show you our intense pre-writing page and talk to you a little bit about this here. I think I have it open. Here it is. All right. So I want to share that a big part of writing includes what happens even before you write a single word. These readings and activities that you're participating in actually help prepare you to write your essay. And that's the goal. And so hopefully you've been thinking about your obstacle and what you want to write about for the last week and a half or so, couple of weeks. So the other thing is that there are some other activities that can help focus your writing a little bit more. It may be that you've done the reading, you've participated in the activities, but you're still not quite sure what you want to write. So I've prepared some activities for you called what I call intense pre-writing, because they're meant to help you sharpen your focus. And each step helps lead you to be more focused and prepared to write. So there's handouts here called looped free writing, and you're going to participate in that, which will help you prepare for your listing or clustering, which will help you prepare a rough or scratch outline. And then finally, based on the work you've done here, you can create a tentative thesis. I do want to point out that all of these activities, there's more that you could use these for other things as well. There's a lot of information here, and so my recommendation is that you save these handouts and go back to them as necessary. So I just want to talk to you briefly about each one. So if we're looking at looped focused free writing, let me take a moment to share with you what free writing is. It's very simple. You set a timer, you write for the time on the timer, and I'm recommending 10 minutes for this. And the one rule is that you just keep writing. You don't lift your pen. If you don't know what to say, you can say, I don't know what to say, or the sky's blue outside, or I hate doing this. Whatever it is you want to say, you can say it. Eventually, if you continue to write, eventually something will come, okay? And you're free writing on those key questions and the writing project prompt. So what do we do with our free writings? Well, we're doing something called looped free writing, where you're writing and then you're coming back and you're reading it and you're making a choice of something else to free write on. And then you go back and you read that and you're going to make a choice of something else to write on. So let me share what you were going to do. So for the purposes of this particular assignment, I would like you to have at least 5 looped focused free writes. So what you're going to do is you're going to free write on your essay prompt for 10 minutes. You're going to read through your free writing. You're going to look for interesting topics, ideas, phrases, or sentences. You're going to circle what you find to be interesting. And then what you're going to do is, based on one of those things that you've circled or highlighted, you're going to just write on that. You're going to focus in on that. So you're going to then free write for another 10 minutes just on that topic. You're going to then go back and read your free writing again. You're going to circle, circle, circle whatever is interesting. And then you have a choice. You can go back to that very first free writing and write about something else. Or you can go to that second free writing and choose something from there. And you're going to do that 5 times. Where you go and what you choose to write about is based on you and what you find to be interesting. This idea of free writing helps you to get your ideas on paper. We don't care about grammar, spelling, organization, or any of that. Just trying to get those ideas down on paper. Okay, so looped free writing. What this free writing is going to help you to then list or cluster. And I'm going to find the right one for that. There we go. Here it is. So listing and clustering, they're just like what they sound like. You might have done this in another English class at some point in time. But the goal is to help you generate ideas, so you can use the ideas that you generated in your free writing, but it also helps you to organize them, okay? So sometimes it's really hard to know what to write about, so you can create your list and you can look at your focused or looped free write to create that list. You can add things to the list that you want to write about, and then you can take a look at that list and you can organize it into chunks or areas. So these things go together and then these ideas go together and so forth. And it begins to help you think about, okay, so this is an obstacle in education. Why is it an obstacle? And so you might have several ideas about why it's an obstacle. You can showcase evidence from Gatto or Rose or Kozel or Malcolm X and put it in there. So you're thinking of these things. So you can organize as a result of creating these lists. And how you choose to do that is up to you. This is meant to help you organize your thoughts. It's not meant to make it more difficult for you. All right, you could choose to list, or if you want to choose, you could choose to cluster. And in the center here, you could put the key questions if you'd like. Or you could put the obstacle here, And then you can come up with, okay, here's the obstacle. Let's break down the obstacle. It's an obstacle because of this. It's an obstacle because of this. It's an obstacle because of this. And then you can come up with details or evidence that illustrate these subheadings or subclaims or subtopics here. And this is another way for you to organize your writing. Okay. The third one, the listing or clustering, should begin to help you create a rough or a scratch outline. This handout here has a whole lot about outlines, and so you can come back and take a look at this for something else, but right here is what we're looking at. A scratch outline is used to help you brainstorm ideas, and it allows you to organize. So you're gonna be able to make your claims take shape. You can use your ideas, you put them in order. You can add some evidence and basic analytical points you want to include. And it's going to help guide you as you compose that first draft. And so what you want to do is you want to lay out your claims. You could look at your list or your cluster. You can prioritize the order that you would like them to go in, and then make sure for each one you have a little bit of evidence and some general analysis and synthesis or synthesis for each of them. I want to remind you what analysis and synthesis means. Analysis means to break down into parts so that you understand the whole better. Synthesis means to take one idea and connect it with another idea, and then you have a clearer connection, a clearer idea. It could be even a different idea that you take these two and put them together and come up with some other conclusion about something, okay? So that is the next part of your intense pre-writing. Once you've done these three things, then you're going to create a tentative thesis. All right, so I have a handout, a really large one about thesis, and depending on how comfortable you are with thesis at this point, you may only want to look at it, a little bit of it, but it may be that you're like, oh gosh, I don't know how to write a thesis. I've always had trouble with it. And actually, this whole handout will help you with that. And there's a table of contents here, which shares with you a working definition of thesis, an overview, and some help with development of a tentative thesis. Now, I want to point out that the word tentative and thesis go together. It's a really important distinction, that when you write a thesis at this point, this is your pre-writing, it's tentative because as you write, you learn. The act of writing is the act of learning. And so it may be that you start writing your paper and you realize that you want to make some changes, and it may be a change to your thesis, and you have permission to do that. Okay, so until you turn in your paper, the thesis does remain tentative. There's a thesis statement checklist also to help you to make sure that you are on point. So we have our working definition, our overview, developing your tentative thesis and why. And within this section, there's a sample of a thesis. A thesis tends to be one sentence. It tends to go at the end of your introduction, but not always, but most teachers are looking for it there at that point. All right. So what's going to happen here is you're going to turn all of these in to your intense pre-writing. Okay, so they're all part of that same assignment. And this is going to help you generate ideas and organization and guide you as you compose your your first draft. Okay, so I wanted to talk to you a little bit about drafting. That what's going to happen is that you're going to turn in a first draft, and this draft, when you turn it in, it's due on February 20th, that you do need to turn that in on time. And one of the important reasons for doing that is not just to get credit, but it's also so that you can participate in a peer review Peer reviews will occur as a result of you turning it in on time. It is called a first draft, but often what happens with drafts is that you may sit down and you may write for a little bit of time. Maybe you write a page or two, and then you need to go take a break, do something else, go to work, go to sleep, eat a meal, exercise, and then you'll come back and read what you've written and add to it. And so it's called a first draft because it is the first time you are actually turning it in. You do need to turn in a completed first draft because it's only in that particular place that we can begin to talk about revising that draft, which is what is going to happen in the peer review. All right, so let's take a look at our online English 100 peer review. So I just want to remind you that the goal of a good peer review is to be able to help the writer think about how to revise their writing so that the message is better, so that it's more clear, it may have stronger claims, better or more evidence, deeper or more thorough analysis that goes beyond the obvious. And so what's going to happen as you turn in that very first draft is that you're going to do a little bit of specific work here. The first thing is that in your draft, you are going to highlight your thesis. This is really important. That way the peer reviewer knows what you intend to be as your thesis so that they can follow your paper a little bit better. I'm going to ask you to number each paragraph, just 1, 2, 3, at the very beginning, right before the indent. The only reason for that is so that the peer reviewer can say, in paragraph 7, I notice XYZ, or this is unclear, this is fantastic because of XYZ. Okay, so it will help you. And then at the very end of your draft, you need to note a couple of items that you would like specific feedback on for your essay. I know that when I write drafts of things, I have specific questions or specific issues that I know that I want to work on for next time. So whatever those 2 items are that you would like your peer reviewer to take a look at, they can be anything from content to organization to style or anything else. I'm not limiting it at all. Whatever it is that you would like help with, you need to give just 2 items. And I want to share with you as well, this is the truth about writing. All writers, regardless of who they are, how old they are, how much they have published, they always have more to learn. Okay, writers always have more to learn. And so having other people take a look at your writing helps you and as a writer, but it also helps you when you peer review. So you taking the opportunity to peer review somebody else's paper, you're going to learn more about writing just by reading somebody else's writing, okay? So once you've turned your papers in and you receive your peer review, okay, you should read what the writer wants you to do. So you go to the end of the essay, you read what they want you to do, and you read the paper and you answer those questions or respond to those issues right away. That's the main thing. Then you're going to do a few other things. The first is you're going to state the obstacle that the author is discussing, because I want to make sure that you as a reader understand what that obstacle is. And if you don't state what that is, or you have a hard time telling what the obstacle is, it means that the author needs to go back and be really clear about what that obstacle is. I'd like you to state the text that the author is choosing to include, Rose, Kozel, or Kozel and Malcolm X, or Gatto and Malcolm X, or whatever it is you want to, whatever combination you want to include. The reason for that is the same as with the obstacle. If there are not 2 texts being used, then the author needs to go back and make sure that they include them. I would like you to do the same with the solution or solutions that the author suggesting. This will help you again. It will help the author know, okay, yes, I'm clear about those solutions that I intended on discussing. Then I'm asking you to look and see, are there any parts of the paper that are unclear? And if so, share the number of the paragraph, and if you can, know why it may be unclear. Sometimes you can tell as a reader why something's unclear. Sometimes it's a little bit hard, and it may be that paragraph 3 is, I don't understand what you're trying to say here. I don't get the point of it. I don't know why it's here. You know, you can give that feedback if that's the truth for you and what you're reading. There's a question, are there parts of the paper that need more developed? Okay, meaning that there are good points, but the author needs more evidence or analysis or synthesis so that the message is stronger. A lot of times I see essays that are really good with really good claims, but then the author stops short without developing and discussing all the nuances of what these claims really mean. They know them in their head, but they're not getting them down to the paper, and that is super important. I'm asking you to state a couple of things that you really like about the paper, and then a couple of other things that may need to be improved. And I would like to remind you all that giving a good peer review means that you are super critical. I don't want somebody to read my paper and say, it's excellent, and then I turn it in and there's all these problems with it that I hadn't thought about. And then I'm getting knocked down because somebody did not give me some helpful, good advice. And I want to share that as a writer, if I get a ton of critique from somebody, I'll take in the critique, and then it's my writing. So I get to choose how I'm going to respond. I can accept, I can reject, or adapt any of the comments that are given. So it gives the peer reviewer permission to be super critical, okay? All right, and so the last thing that I want to talk about briefly is the idea of incorporating visuals. You have to include one visual in your paper. And the reason for this is that we are living in a time and space where we are mostly taking in multimodal writing. What does multimodal mean? It means multiple modes. So we're looking at often text and a visual, text and a sound, sometimes text, visual, and sound. And so if you look at films, those are actually very multimodal, okay? You may be creating them on social media, but you're looking at a lot of texts that are multimodal. And so I want you to practice using visuals as well. And so I don't want you to be scared by this, though, because as long as you have it in your paper, you're not going to get knocked any points down, even if you haven't done a great job with it. I just want you to get started and try with it. The goal is for you to be able to choose a visual that can help you get your message across better. You need to be able to put it in your paper and refer to it. And I'll talk to you about that a little bit more in a minute. But sometimes students don't, what do you mean by visual? What kind of visual should I put in my writing? Well, you can put a photograph, one you've taken or one that you are, that you find on Google. I don't care, something that helps illustrate your paper. A diagram, an infographic, and you guys have created infographics, so this is something that you can include if you want to. A table, a pie chart, or a bar graph. This is an example of a visual. And a lot of times when you see the information this way, as opposed to just in text, it helps illustrate your point better. You can include a bar graph. And again, you can make any of these yourself or find something from somebody else. You can include a flow chart. You can include a map, okay? Any of these things to help you strengthen your writing. Now, I told you that I would talk a little bit more about incorporating them or placing them into your writing project. So again, you want to choose a visual that enhances the reader's understanding of part or all of your text. You should center your visual within a paragraph near where you mention it. Right under the visual, write figure 1 or figure A, and then if you add a second visual, you only need to have one, but if you add a second one, you should note 1 is figure 1 and 1 is figure 2, and so on. In your writing, make sure you refer to your visual. You should point out and or analyze the details from the visual. Some suggestions to introduce it are as follows. Notice in figure 1, as shown in figure 1 or figure 1 shows, you are welcome to use those phrases. And then finally, you want to cite your visual in your works cited. And I have some sample MLA works cited rules